Hey there kids, welcome to another math video. This is for Module 3. We finally made it, hooray! And so this is Module 3, Lesson 1, and it's the homework. And the objective here at the bottom of the page, as usual, is to make equivalent fractions with the number line, the area model, and numbers. So this is going to be your number line, these will be your area models, and these will be what the numbers look like. So before we get too far in, there is something that I want you to go do and watch. It's on my old channel, Laura Setness, because I have not made a new one for my Mrs. Setness channel, but it's a preparing for lesson 1 for the module 3. And it's basically just prepping the little paper strips that they ask you to make. You probably have already done it if you completed the problem set already, which you should have. So this one, preparing for lesson 1, then the problem set, those should be all done. In fact, your homework should be done, and you should be using this only as support to help you figure out if you did it right. So grab a few of the paper strips that they say right here, use the folded paper strip. That's what they're referencing. They want you to use what you created so that you can make this number line and understand about these equivalent fractions. So because of 3rd and 4th grade, your experiences with fractions, you should know what a fraction is. It's a piece of a whole. You can have proper fractions, which would be a piece of a whole or 2 pieces of a whole. You can have improper fractions, which would be more than the whole itself. So I could have 4/3, and that would be 1, 2, 3/3, and another third. And so if one thing is broken into 3 parts, I could have more than one. So when we get to the back side of this, we'll actually have the opportunity to see that. So anyway, we're going to use the folded paper strip to mark points 0 and 1 above the number line, and then the fractional units before. So just hold that paper strip. Here's our 0 and 1. That's the whole thing. And then you can have your 1/3 and 2/3. So here's your 0/3, 1/3, 2/3, and 3/3. And you should know by now that 3/3, or any whole number over itself, would be equal to 1. Now you're kind of done with the paper strip, so just push that aside. You also need to know what vertical means. Vertical means up and down. And you also need to know what horizontal means, and that means left, right, or sideways, whatever you use to think about that. But we're going to draw 2 vertical lines to break each rectangle into thirds. And the vertical lines are going to look like this. And then we're going to shade the left third of each. And if you use your hand to make that L, that makes left over here and right is over here. So we're going to shade one of the thirds. Partition with horizontal lines to show equivalent fractions. We'll get to that in a second. Then use multiplication to show the change in units. So in order to complete this page in less than 30 minutes, we're going to try to make everything and then talk through it. So vertical lines, make those first. 2 lines make 3 sections. It's kind of the funny thing about making fractions is that the number of lines is always going to be 1 less than the number of sections because the last line makes 2 sections. Okay, so now we have 1/3 in each one. You can also start with 1/3 for your numbers that they were talking about up here. Okay, so now I have 1/3 of each one, and we're going to make the horizontal lines, the left to right, to show equivalent fractions. Now on this one, they have the numbers, but they did not set up the horizontal lines. So since we're dividing this into 2 sections, we're going to draw 1 line and make it into 2 groups of 3 so that we end up with the equivalent 2/6 being shaded. 2 are shaded out of 6. So before we had 1 out of 3 was shaded, and then at the end, out of this one whole thing, we have 2 shaded out of 6. Okay, so hopefully you guys can follow along. You should have had some good practice with the problem set. For this one, we're going to divide it into 2 more parts. 2 lines making the 3 parts, I should clarify there. And so you're going to copy the 1/3, and the way they do it is they have 1 bar and 2 multiplication signs. And since we now have 3 sets of 3, okay, so 3 sets of 3, you now have 3 shaded out of 9. Notice that this is being multiplied by the how many sections we're making in order to get the equivalent fraction. This one we're going to have 4 sections. So it's the halfway, and I talked about this on a previous video, and then cut the upper half and then cut the lower half. And again, 1 fraction bar. This is not intuitive for me, so I need to do the 1/3 and then 4/4. And then we're going to multiply, and we have your 4 shaded out of 12. And for the final, not intuitive. And we're going to make fifths. So 1 section, 2 sections. The third one's usually in the middle. Try to space it out so they're roughly the same size. Good luck with that. I know kids have the hardest time with that. And then you're going to make fifths or 5 horizontal sections. And so you've got 5 shaded out of 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 5, 10, 15. So you're making these equivalent fractions. You haven't changed the size of 1. You've only made more fractional units within it. Okay? Let's use this next one on the number line. If you have fourths, you should have a paper strip that has fourths. If not, you could use a ruler. Okay, we're going to do the same pattern with the 0 and 1 above the number line. This is 1 whole. Mark your little tick marks on there to show where the fourths are, and then label everything. 0 fourths, 1/4, 2 fourths, 3 fourths, 4 fourths. Hold my book, move it up. Okay, straighten you out. All right, so if we have fourths instead of thirds, we're going to half vertically and then half the left, half the right. Try your best. As long as they're close, we'll just move forward. Like I have said before, it's not art class, it's math class. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be at least understandable. And since we are using fourths, we're going to shade the left-hand fourth. Real quick. Scribble, scribble. There you go. Okay. Same approach. Okay, so half would make 2. Then we're going to have thirds, then fourths, then fifths. 2 pieces. 2 lines make 3 pieces. 3 lines make 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines make 5 pieces. Now all your area models are done. Check your area models and make sure you're counting that you have the right number of pieces. Now we're starting with 1/4 each time. So we had our 1/4. And then in order to figure out your equivalent fraction, you just have to multiply by how many pieces. Okay, so I have 1/4 multiplied by 2. And so then we have our 2/8. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 shaded out of 8. 1/4 times we had our 3. Notice that if we're changing this amount, the ratio is staying the same so that we can show this fraction in a different amount, but it's still equivalent to what we had before because the ratio is still 1 to 4. Think about it this way. There's 1 3 in 3, and there are 4 3s in 12. That's kind of how you should be thinking about it. 1/4 again, and then 4/4 for a total of 4 shaded out of 16. That's equivalent. 1/4, 5/5, oops, 5/20. Okay, so those are the front, that's the front page. Those are all the models, the number line, area model, and numbers that you should have for your equivalent fractions. Hoping this is helpful for you. I feel like this is a complicated way to do this. It would not be my choice, but what do I know about math, right? I was not a math expert. Okay, this next one is fifths. Some of these lessons I like, though. Some of them are okay. All right, so here we have our fifths, and we start with our 0 and 1, just to show you that this is the whole, and they're all the same size, mind you. They're all the same size. 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5. Move your paper strip. Should already be done. Label everything. 2/5, that's 3/5, 3 out of 5, 4/5, 4 out of 5, and always on the 1, it's the number over itself, 5/5, all the pieces. We do need to make our vertical fifths, so that's a little challenging. Good luck. 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one has a bend. Oh well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, shade the, this is different. Notice, how many fifths are we supposed to shade? Does it say 1/5? No, it says 4/5. 1/5 is not the same as 4/5. So this time we're going to shade in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Okay, now that you see how many to shade, make sure you're shading 4 of them, not 1. That's probably the thing that catches most kids on this homework assignment, is that you didn't shade the right amount of pieces. Okay, so shade 4 each time. That numerator really matters. Shake, 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 wobble, shake and wobble. All right, so now your first number for each one is not 1/5 anymore. It should be 4/5 because that's what we're starting with. Check your work there and make sure you have 4/5. Okay, and then you're going to have your fraction line, and you're going to take your 4/5 and multiply it and get ready to horizontally separate these sections. Now this is going to be multiplied 2 more groups of pieces. So now I have 8 pieces out of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 shaded out of 10. 9, 10. Okay, so we're making 2 groups. When I had the 4/5, I'm making 2 groups of pieces, okay? 2 groups of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 group here, 1 group here, okay? So I have this equivalent. And again, if you look at the relationship between these, we're going to work on simplifying and finding other equivalent fractions. You can go up from here, which would be the lowest or simplest form, but you could take this and simplify it and go down. So we're going to get to that point later too. 4/5, multiply, multiply. And now we need 3 sections. So 2 lines, 3/3. Okay, so 3 sections of these 5. Now I have 12. So 4, 8, 12. 12 are shaded out of 15. This is equivalent. 4/5. And then we're making 4 sections. Half the top, half the bottom. 4/4. That means 16 are now shaded. 4 times 4, that's an array. Out of how many? 20. 5 times 4 is 20. So notice the array that you're making, but also notice the numbers. Pretty soon we just drop off these area models. They go away. And let's make fifths horizontally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have 20 shaded out of 25. Or you should have that if you're all done. Now the last one is really interesting, and I actually had to make an extra, a strip of the eighths. So let's just use your eighths fraction strip for starters here. And do your 0 and your 1, or that should already be done. Put tick marks for all the eighths. Okay. Label everything. 1/8, 2/8, 3. Ooh, I almost put 5 because I was counting in my head. 5/8, 6/8. Hello, 7/8, 8/8. Here is our 8/8. So what happens when they want 9/8? Okay, so here are my 8/8, and I'm like, where are all these fraction strips? Here is another set of eighths going right off the screen there. But if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8/8, like it says right there, then 9/8 would be over here. This is 9/8. So I could continue this. So what does that look like when it's more than 1? That's what you should be thinking about, okay? This is more than 1. As they have given you a model so that you can use more than 1 to show the 9/8. Oh, the lights. The lights are back. Okay. Oh, yeah, and now, okay, time change. It's dark. All right, so what you need to do is make sure you have eighths. Half the left, half the right. Now half each of these pieces and you'll have eighths. Always do it that way. Don't start at the left and try to fit 8 pieces. It never works. Just throw in the towel and do it my way. I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot better for you. Okay, now here's 1 and here's 1. This is 8/8. This is also 8/8. Okay, but I need to show 9/8. So it's 8/8, which means all of these, plus 1/8. So 1 over here. 8 plus 1 is 9. Okay? Now, we're going to do equivalent fractions with our eighths, with our 9/8, and we'll split it. First, we'll do the 2. Okay? So 2 groups of eighths. Start out with your 9/8. We're going to copy that as we have done. Oops. Multiply. And then this is going to be the 2 groups of 8. So how many are shaded now? If you add them up, what are you going to get? Well, you're going to get 8 here and 8 here. That makes a total of 16, plus these 2. That's 18. But what is the value of 1? That's the important thing right here. And the value of 1 is 8. So when I have 18/16, that's because 16/16 is still equal to 8/8. It's just 1. So when you go over that, this is the equivalent, and it shows that that is also more than 1. But you can do another one over here. So make your eighths again. Oh, this is going to be wobbly for my hand with the spine of the book in the way. That's okay. We're going to do our best. There are my eighths. Oh, I better go slowly here. Half all the halves. Just use halves. Always works great. Now we need the 9/8 again. So it's all 8/8 here. Plus 1/8. Okay, and I'm not going to write that because you guys should know that. It's 8/8 plus 1/8. That's the 9/8. So we start out with 9/8. But this time you can make a different one. Now you don't have to do the 2s. You could do 4s and 5s. You could do as many as you want. I don't particularly want to take all that time. So I'm just going to do 3rds. And then we're going to make our equivalent. So it's the 3rds and the 8 times 3. And now if you counted them all, you would have 27 24ths. Your answers may vary because you may have chosen something different, but you can do anything you want. 2 equivalent fractions. These are equivalent. I'm just using halves and thirds. You could use anything you want, anything that floats your boat. Okay, and hopefully this has been helpful. And click subscribe and come back if you like these math videos. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.